Welcome back. Number one social dynamics podcast in the world, the Sample Podcast. Today with me, I have Grant Lannin. If you don't know who he is, type in Mindhackz on TikTok and see the content that this man produces. He's the self-development coach you needed because he's not a self-development coach. He's an absolute G at life. This man drops absolute gems again and again and again and has a really, really good outlook on life that I want to kind of interview him on and bestow upon you guys because he's not a dating coach. He's not a sales coach. He's not this. He's everything. He is a communication coach. He's so dialed in the way that he does things. So I really want to get an idea of how he did it himself so that you guys can absolutely level up your life and your communication. The man was a sales genius. He moved into social media. He's gained the ranks, hundreds of thousands of hours of content. I think I calculated he's got 69 million views on TikTok, which is the equivalent of someone watching his content for about 3,800 years. That's crazy to think the amount of content that has been watched by the masses in the world of Grant, which is very, very good. So today I'm going to interview him specifically on dating, specifically on social dynamics, communication, and his story of how he got there so that you can actually level your life up very similar to how he has. So welcome to the podcast, Mr. Grant Landon. How are you today, brother?
Sam, thank you, my friend. I love the intro. I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Tell us how Mindhackz on TikTok came about. Tell us how you started dropping content. Now, 500,000, or even more. I think it's 560,000 people now, 69 million views. How did that come about?
Yeah. So basically, I was doing like just stupid comedy skits, right? So I would just think of something funny and then I'd record it because I'm always making jokes with my friends and we're always doing stupid voices and stuff like that. So we just were like, oh, let's record it. And then I was doing like some stand-up stuff in Portland, Oregon. So like we would just go out and do, again, dumb skits. So I was putting out like jokes and stuff and like some would hit, some wouldn't. I have a very like unique sense of humor, I would say. So like if people get it, they get it. If not, they kind of may or may not hate me or the joke at least. So I was doing that for a bit. And then one day, like I just got annoyed with something and I can't remember exactly what it was. And I think I ranted about like life standards or how our standards trap us or some weird concept like that. And then I put the phone down and I didn't even know TikTok like could make you go viral. I didn't really know anything about it because my friend had talked me into getting it like 3 weeks before. And so like I woke up and it was like 1 million views and I was like, whoa, like this is insane. Like 1 million views. That was crazy. And I was like, what the hell? So I'm like texting my mom. I'm like, this is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Are you cool if we cuss? I don't know if you have like a,
Yeah, go for your life, bro. I'm
okay.
Australian. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that's what I thought, but I didn't know, Matrix attacking, whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, this is fucking insane. And then I was like, okay, this is interesting. Nobody followed me though. So that was really interesting to me. And I was like, I looked at my page and I'm like, oh, they're getting like kind of weird skits. And then you get a random life video. They just have no idea what this is. So I did a super quick rebrand in like 10 seconds. And I was like, Mindset X or whatever the hell I said, made another video and that took off. And then it like just ripped. I think I did like 100K followers in like 6 days or something. And then I was like, and then all I saw was dollar signs because I'm a business dude. So I'm like, yo, I don't know how I'm going to make money from this, but let me just keep ripping what's working and then just figure it out, down the road. So it was like an accident, I guess.
I'm not sure. You're one of the guys, especially on TikTok, that has used I did it poorly, very poorly when I did it. And I was
Okay.
watching you and I'm like, holy
Yeah.
shit, you monetized your audience so well on such a platform that a lot of people come to me or come to other people and say, like, oh, don't worry about it. It's only kids, it's only this, they don't do that. But
Yep.
you've hacked it in so many different ways. Talk about your bio, your Instagram bio, you're talking about your call to action within the first couple of seconds. How did you get all this? Like, because what I'm looking at with you from the outside is someone that understands humans to a degree that most don't. So you understand how they think, you understand what triggers them, you understand how to kind of be able to take money from them and offer them a service and stuff. So where did all this knowledge come from, first of all?
Yeah. I mean, the short answer is like living life, right? Like we deal with people and you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
I think I was blessed in a way, or I call it a blessing. I didn't have like a difficult upbringing, but I had parents who were not of the norm. And I had to figure out why they were acting the way that they were from a psychological standpoint, right? So that really started my journey young. And then I was always just as a kid, out asking kids to go play in the neighborhood or whatever. Like, hey, can John play today? No, he's not here. Oh, when's he going to be back? Oh, Tuesday night. Okay. And then I'd be like, well, if he comes back here, I could do it. So like, I was just out and about, like hanging out with people. And so I think that's a lot of where the groundwork was laid. And then just like, that was reflected in stuff I was doing. So like parent situation, friend situation, I was always just hanging out with people and observing what they were doing. And so I think that put me, and I didn't know this was like not normal, but like I moved to a different city later on as an adult. Like, so I probably left my main neighborhood at like 12 because my parents basically, we just moved me away from my city. And then all the cities I went there from then on, I would make these friends and I'm like, oh, did you hang out with kids as a kid? And they were like, no, like we just sat in our house and like, because all our friends were 20 minutes away. And I was like, whoa, that was crazy to me. Cause I just thought the neighborhood thing was normal. So I think that's when it started. And then just perpetual learning. I've always had an interest in psychology in the mind. And I love why people make decisions and how they weigh things out and why they're deciding different things and how they set up the stories about their lives. So I've just always followed that. So those high overview, I would say. So like in the trenches, bro, on the fucking playground.
Yeah, it seems like, from the start, a fascination in getting better socially, getting better just with people in general. It seems like from an upbringing. That's fantastic because a lot of people, they'll have those things, but they won't take any action towards it, or they won't think, oh, there's actually a way that I can control this or change this or get better. So I really want to get into with you specifically on social dynamics, because I feel like you are someone that has a unique perspective on a lot of things, where we're talking about whether it was dating, relationships, whether it's just a general human communication. You're someone that takes an overarching principle to, life. So tell us like what high school was like, going into more college, and then now to where you're at. So, what was high school like? Did you get bullied? Did you not get bullied? Were you generally good with women all your life?
Yeah. So high school, I've always played sports. So I played like college basketball, and I played a bunch of different sports when I was in high school. So I was like, I played sports, right? People generally liked me. I was fairly quiet though. So I was pretty reserved. I've always been kind of sarcastic, and like kind of funny, but I was nowhere as talkative as I am now and nowhere as outgoing as I was. So I was basically like the sports guy that was kind of friends with everybody, that wasn't like people thought should be a dick, but never really was. That was kind of me. Literally. And like, you make friends with like people of all different types of activities. And they're like, oh man, I literally thought you'd be an asshole, but you're like pretty nice. I'm like, thanks. Yeah, I just don't talk that much. So that was kind of me in high school. And then college, I played basketball. So I got a scholarship. I was playing basketball there. And then that's when a lot of the stuff for me happened. Like 18, dude, I was having fucking panic attacks like every single day, and I had no idea why. And so like, I just never had it happen before. And I was like, this is crazy. And so like really now what it was, and me knowing the mind, I had no community. So my body's freaking out, thinking I'm at the bottom of some hierarchy because I just have no friends. Dude, I'm downing like 3 coffees a day. I'm cutting weight, so I'm not eating food. Like I'm lifting too hard, so my nervous system is taxed. Like everything you could, like if I was like, yo, let me try to have someone have a panic attack, I would do everything I was doing basically. Like lost for life. Basketball was ending and I knew that. So my whole identity was shifting because like I was always a basketball player. And then that was getting ripped from me. So I was like, fuck, I don't know where to go. It was like everything, bro. But then the panic attacks were like the greatest blessing because I was forced to be like, why the fuck is this happening to my mind? There's nowhere to go. You can't run away from it. And then that was like, I went down. So the pain of that made me go down and discover like Eckhart Tolle. So I had like the power of now and all that shit. And then that was really a huge thing for me. And I was like, oh my God, I can't control this. Cause I thought I could, because I'm like, I used to not have panic attacks. Now I do. The difference here is me. So let me figure out what the hell's happening. But then like, dude, I went to like 10 different doctors and it was like, they're like pills. It was like pills. And I was like, no. And they're like, yes. And I'm like, what the hell? And then even my own family was like, take the pills. And I'm like, no, like, I'm not going to take these fucking pills. I know it's me. And then the Eckhart thing, like confirmed everything I had already thought. I'm like, okay, thank you. There's a way to do this, but I'd never seen the path. And then, so I just went down that fucking path and that went there. But then, dude, I got like, so I basically fixed the panic attack thing and I started fixing everything. I was like, oh, I'm super quiet now because I'm stifling myself. Let me fix this. Oh, I'm not speaking my mind. Let me fix this. Oh, I'm afraid to lead people. Let me fit. And I just kept fix, 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 fix. And I think all those, I call them arches, like nice guy to me now or quiet guy to me now. I think me doing all those made me relatable to the audience because I would just be like, hey, you're stuck here. I had this problem. Here's what I did to fix it. You could try and see if it works or not. So I only know because I fucking had all these issues that I had to sort out my own mind.
That's where I think one of the best coaches are. They've had all the problems. They've had every issue. And I remember you talked about. I'd love to get your opinion on this. You talked about one of the things that was like very pivotal for you was seeking out rejection, like actively seeking out. So it goes against every contrary belief that society has told us when you're saying here. So how did that form about where you actively started seeking rejection, not in just life, but did it come from sales calls? Did it come from always getting rejected and then you kind of transition it into life, or was it before that?
Yeah. I love that question personally. So like sales was a thing and then like dating was a thing that I was doing and these collided like at the same time. And so, I mean, people say dating is sales, sales is dating. My stance, I mean, it's literally the same exact thing. So like the parallels are fucking, I mean, you're literally talking into someone to do X or selling yourself as a person. It's all the same shit. So my parallel was basically my family had a business. So I graduated, I started a marketing company, got that up, basically failed it, needed a job, got into sales. So now I'm in a sales position and I'm taking dude, we're doing like 100 calls a day. So I was literally taking 100 sales calls a day for 3 years. Like the volume was absolutely fucking crazy. We're doing 16-hour days. And so that's happening. And then also I had just been like red pilled by my friend about girls. So like I hadn't really done dating apps. I'm probably like 21 at the time. And like, I was kind of funny in person, but I did nothing about women's psychology and like game or any of that shit. So like, I was just starting to learn that kind of, but then like, I had no style. I had basically like all my shit that I wore was like used fucking basketball shirts and stuff from free camp. So I had literally zero style. Like I didn't know how to groom my beard, bro. Like literally even grooming I just didn't know how to trim I just never did it. No one told me. And like my natural kind of funny sort of able to say crazy things helped me a little bit. But I was like, basically he was like, bro, you're a man 5, you got to become a man 10. That's literally what he told me. And I was like, oh shit. So then I couldn't really text any chicks. And then he taught me how to text. And then I was like, holy shit, there's a way to actually do this. And I don't even know how this is. So then he kind of coached me. But then the point is we went out every day for like 2 years. So I was like super fascinated with mastering my dating. So I was like, let's fucking run it. So basically I have 100 sales calls a day coming in and I'm doing this from like literally 5 a.m. to like 8 to 9 p.m. And then I'm linking up with my boy and we're going out for like 3-4 hours a night, like every single night. So this is literally all I'm doing for like 2 years straight. And so the seek rejection thing literally came into my life then because I was like, oh shit, it was the sales calls first. Like I was the same Grant every call. So I would take calls and then a third of the people I estimated like literally loved me. A third were like, whatever. And then a third like literally fucking hated me. Like they were like, get me off the phone. I don't like you. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. I'm literally doing the same thing. And the variable is the other person, not me. That's super interesting. So I was like, okay. So I noticed that. And then with the dating stuff, it was the same shit, bro. I would send on like 20 girls in a night. And then some of them like literally would be like, get the fuck away. Some of them would be like, you're an actual God on earth. Like steal my soul right now, daddy. And then the other like third of them would be like, whatever. And I was like, okay, this is the same shit. So then I was like, what if I just lean into only getting no's? Like, what if I can just cut the process and do it on the front end? Because knowing that 60% of, let's say, people aren't going to like me anyway, or aren't going to give me a yes, why don't I just say, fuck it, jump the line of the process and go there first? So I literally would start doing that. So then with clients, I would say stuff like, hey, John, I mean, looking at your thing here, it's probably going to come to price. You don't have any money, do you? Shit like that. And they'd be like, well, no. And I'm like, okay, I would swerve them. Or with girls, I use jokes. So I'd be like, oh my God. I'd be like, your forehead's the size of Kansas. I can't wait to move on to your fucking homestead and impregnate you on your own face. Like some stupid thing like that, right? And so you would either laugh at that or you'd literally freak out that I just said that. And then I would just do the super speed everything. So then the parallel was for sales calls, the average agent was doing like an hour and a half per call. My closes were like 37 minutes because I could jump to the front with the no. And then for dating, you've polled, right? So you could you meet some chick and 7 minutes later you're making out and then 8 minutes later you're like smashing the bathroom or whatever it is. So it's a great metric to use because it's like people think a lot of the time people don't like them because of them. And like sometimes that's true if you've done no work, but like if you put in the hours and actually tried to fix yourself, like you're a super likable dude yourself. So it's like at some point, if people don't like someone who's likable, it's fucking their problem. You know what I mean? So like, yeah.
I love that. I love that. We talk about here we do a thing very similar. We get the fuck off. So
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
go until you get the fuck off, and that's the worst thing that you could ever get in your entire life. And your night, and you're like, oh sweet, I'll get that within the first 30 seconds. This is going to be a good night.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I love to you to touch back on the 33% rule that you just said.
Yeah.
In terms of, I remember in a video you talk about, 33% are going to love you, 33% are going to hate you, 33% are going to be iffy, and then from that, I'm not sure, but you that's where the persuasion would happen, or you would kind of fall into left or right. You would either be able to persuade them or not be able to. So there's a little bit there. I'd love for you to talk a little bit more about that, especially for the guys, because that's their first problem. Like they don't have the ability, or they're super scared. But just knowing that, okay, you're going to get rejected either way. That's 100%. I've never seen someone with 100% close rate, right? So I'd love for you to what's your mindset when you are doing that with those 33%?
Yeah. So that was created while I was doing the sales calls and while I was doing the dating. It was basically a model that I created to manage my own energy and time. But to your point, so I've done some dating coaching, right? And a lot of guys, when they don't have success yet, think, oh, I'm going to get a lot of success and I'm going to get any girl ever forever. And you get there and you're like, oh, that's actually not how it is. I still actually get rejected. And then you think back, you're like, do I get rejected the same amount? You're like, no, there's no way. But you shoot more shots and you figure out what your style is. And so your success rate's way higher because you know what you like and what they like. It's just self-awareness, right? So I think that's a big thing for guys. They're like, oh, I'm gonna have a magic wand and make any girl fall in love. And it's like, well, work. If she's your type, maybe but if she's not your type, then no. So that's a super weird conversation. But the 33%, so essentially it's 33% of people you meet, and again, these are just the model that I'm using. What are the actual numbers? Who cares, in my opinion? So 33% are going to love you no matter what. 33% are going to be on the fence. 33% are going to hate you no matter what. So the most important one, in my opinion, is the hate you no matter what, because that's where people fuck up. Because it's if you get into a conversation with somebody and they fucking hate you no matter what, or they just hate your product, if you're a salesperson, can you take the time to spin them to liking you? Sure. Right. And so maybe you might even dig a little bit, but then you realize, oh, this is a war I'm never going to win. So a real example of this is someone might have a parent, or they might have a friend, or they might have anybody who criticizes them for everything. And then when that happens, you think it's you, right? So then you're like, oh, let me double down and do this for them, or this for them. Or maybe if I don't do this anymore, maybe if I don't say this thing to offend them, let me just pander to what they like over and over and over again. And then at some point you play that game long enough, you check every fucking box of what you think they want you to be for them to like you. And then you get there and then they still don't like you. And you're like, oh my God, you're like, I literally just spent 7 years playing a fucking game that I literally can't win. And then it's super liberating. So you're like, oh my God. So fuck it right away. So that was part of the reason of how I ended up with that rule is you just can't, some people just ain't going to vibe with you. It's not a good fit. So then it's okay, pay attention to the yeses right away, or the maybes. And then with all the maybes, cause what I used to do is somebody wouldn't buy my thing, or a girl wouldn't like me or whatever. And I would be like, oh, she didn't like me because I fucked up here, or she didn't like me because this. Well, let me try to fix this. And you do it again and again and again. And then you try to go back to the girl. She still hates you. You're like, oh, I guess it wasn't me. And then because the hardest part when you're starting is literally knowing, is it you or is it them? It's super hard. Because if your game ain't fucking tight, it's did I mess up or did I not? But then through thousands and thousands of reps, you get let's say your game or your sales skills to the level of assassin. And then oh, it's not me because I had done the fucking work. And then it gets a lot clearer. But then for the 33% thing, it's okay, well, they hate me right away. That's just not my person. Cause you wouldn't want to be friends with that person either. If they literally are an asshole and hate you right away, oh, please be my friend. Let me just suck your toes and maybe we'll have a friendship. It just logically doesn't make any fucking sense anyway. And then you wouldn't want to be friends with that person either. So then it's okay, I met somebody and they were kind of on the fence with me. Okay, cool. Now I usually go to, do I think I could win them over one day? Whether it's a sale or a girl or a friend, if I want them in my life. If the answer is yes, okay, then I'm going to consciously choose to put effort towards watering this thing to convert them.
Yeah.
So then I'll walk down the path of converting them for a little bit. And then if I don't get, or if signs come up that they really don't like me or I'm not making progress, I'll like cut it off and be like, nope, wasn't there. Let me take that energy of converting a maybe and then reposition it to finding a yes already, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's just how to control your time.
With the maybes, the guys I know instantly they would say, well, what are the signs? You know, what are the signs, Grant?
Yeah.
Let's do sales and let's do dating. What are the signs for sales? That might be a maybe, because a lot of these guys are sales guys. A lot of them are in like some sort of business. So what would be a one or two, maybes that you're like, oh, okay, where they're asking questions back or something,
100%. And I hate, like, those are the hardest to answer, which I'm sure you know, because like it's so much of it is context and like tonality.
Yes.
And just social awareness that's happening in the moment. Like any hard thing is tough because like I could be like, some guys would be like, oh, if the girl, says I hate you, right? But then obviously, if you make a really good joke and you get the slap, she'll be like, I fucking hate you. And you're like, that's a good sign. That stuff is always tough. But like, let's say, so like sales wise, they ask buying questions. So like, let's say you were selling me, I don't know, like an insurance product. And then I'm not really sold, but then you have a really good pitch and you kind of see me light up a little bit. My body language might change and I'm just showing interest. Right. And then I ask stuff like, well, does the premium switch like on year 2? Or like that would be a buying question. So it's like, he in his mind, he's already purchased and he's trying to fit it in. So in the same way, with dating, a girl might ask something or say something. So there's basically levels with the girl stuff, right? It's like, get her to like you, right? Get her to like you. And then there's levels to it. But when you're texting her, I always start verbally. So it's like, if I make a joke on a girl, does she entertain it, right? Or I have fake joke worlds is one of the things that I'll show guys how to do. So it's like, oh my God, you're so hot. Let's move to a homestead in Virginia and raise 72 babies and fucking name them all Grant Jr. And if she says like, that's fucking weird, ew, then it's like, oh, then she didn't even go with my joke. She doesn't like me. But if she's like, oh my God, and can we also have like some wood cabins then I'm like, oh, that's good. So I'll always use words to get them to buy in, but in person, it's all feel. I mean, so like if a guy is asking a question, like, how do I know if people like me or not? You're too early for me to teach you anything. You have to go literally seek rejection and get rejected 1,000 times so you can have some kind of foundation. Literally, because it's like you're trying to solve a problem logically that you can only get from an energetic and like feeling standpoint. So like get a couple lines written down like that you have heard Sam do or somebody, use those 1,000 times and then watch their reactions and then come back and ask the question, so it's like, it's super hard.
That's fundamental, hearing you do thousands upon thousands of sales calls. No wonder that voice is dialed in. And I'm sure you were yourself. I'm sure you're telling jokes on the thing. And I'm sure that's where the personality came out, running the same conversation. And you get bored after the first 50 times, just creating complete tangents and this and that just to buy things. Do you feel like that was where your voice came from? Doing those sales calls over and over.
100% the sales calls. And really what it was is reps. So, and I would say it was focused reps. So I had an outcome that I wanted and I knew I had to get this person to agree to see my way of things to get there. And then it was reps from there. So like they would roast me and I still kind of am monotone, but like they would call me the monotone salesperson because we would listen to my calls and they would all be like, oh, he doesn't even have it was a running joke that I had no tonality. But they didn't understand tonality because I still had tonality. It was just very fucking monotone. And now I'm more expressive than I was, but like that annoyed me. So like, I was literally like, I have to figure out this voice thing. Cause cause like from a growing up perspective, like I would say alpha, like type A, just dad that was like running shit. And so it's like, if you're a little kid and you speak up, you kind of get shot down. So it's like just stifled naturally. We all have our shit, right? Maybe family, friends, whatever. So I had a fear of expression for sure. And so I had to get over that fear. And then once I had to get over, so the getting over the fear was a big thing. And then once I got over that, then it was like, okay, it was like a training. So every day I would literally wake up in the sales calls and I would focus on tonality. And I'd be like, let me sound like somebody who has good fucking tonality. That's my goal for today. And then I would just run these calls and I would catch myself and I'd be like, Nancy, I think this is like a pretty good fit for you with the policy. And I was like, oh shit, I did it again. So next call, I'd be like, Nancy, this fucking policy, this is the policy that you need, right? So then I'd put more conviction in it. And then just the 100 calls, bro, rep. So I think if anybody has like any kind of stifled shit in them, it's like you need a high volume something. So either go cold approach 700 people in a day, which you can do, which I've done, or like customer service job, like a barista or a sales job, like get in the actual game. Cause like, this is what guys don't understand either. They're like, well, if I read this book, can I pick this idea up and give it and then apply it to the situation? And it's like, well, maybe, but you're still like not practicing the situation. So like go to the core of the issue and solve the problem where it's at. So like, if you can't talk to a pretty girl, stop reading a book and then trying to extrapolate, like go talk to the girl, like do the thing that you can't do. So for me, it was tonality. So I'm like, well, let me do 100 sales calls a day, if that makes sense. So yeah, calls definitely, I was crafting it like consciously on the go for years, literally.
Years and years and years. That's perfect. That's exactly what I think nearly every dude needs in
Literally.
some sense, in every sense. I got some definitely some things written down. There was one concept that I really wanted you to touch on because I thought it was very pivotal the way that you said it, which was like most guys nowadays, or I'd like to get into more your ideas about the risk adverse nature that men are at, for sure, as well as where modern masculinity and everything has been going in the last couple of years, where because you've been in it, you've seen it, you've been interacting with these guys, you've got coaching clients of yourself. Where's the change been for you? Have you seen, and where do you think it's going? Like, do you have a positive outlook? Do you have a negative outlook? Because for me in Australia, very negative outlook on the way that men are right now. It's all to do with the media, like every sort of thing. It's to do with even the way that we're governed. So this country is a little bit, I'm not talking shit about this country, but it's not amazing for masculinity, let's just say. You go online, and I was seeing things online, and there's a girl on TikTok that's actively promoted because I started new accounts, and she's coming up all the fucking time. And it's all like, men are shit, men are trash, they're only good for war and stuff like that. That was one of the videos. I was like, hold the fucking phone, what? And I was like, holy shit. So they're definitely demasculating. So I'd like to get your opinions on those kind of things and where you see it going.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm glad you asked that, because I was curious of like what you see in Australia, because I've never been. But so there's a war there too, it sounds like, right?
Definitely a war, a big time war, especially news outlets for sure. I don't think we're not as unplugged as the rest of the world. We're very still sheltered down here for sure.
Yeah, see, that's crazy to me. Also, I took a picture of us together because I'm gonna just flex this and be like, I'm literally talking to the goat himself. So I'm gonna slide the tag on there.
Yeah, you're fine.
But yeah, so I think so I've never really articulated like I'm about to, but I think I'll try to. I'll stumble through it. Like I think it's the setup that we're facing here is going to create mostly soy boys, let's say, right? Soy boy, whatever you want to call it, with a bunch of hyper masculine dudes like lurking in the shadows, connected in like backdoor networks. And the reason I say that is because like, if you're semi-aware of anything at all, you see how clearly there is a push against masculinity, right? There's teams happening. It's for dudes and anti-dudes. And everything that you usually consume in a mainstream fashion is anti-dude, right? Because they, right? And again, it's fucking the Matrix or whatever. Yeah, they want control. And if you're somebody who's listening to this podcast and you hear me say they want control and you don't understand what I'm talking about, there's a huge awareness gap that you need to get yourself up to so you can start paying attention to the war that's actually being fought, which in my opinion is a literal spiritual war happening on our faces right now all the time. So like, as a guy in this world, you need to first understand that there are forces trying to dim your light and take your strength away. And you're going to be told by friends, by teachers, by other people what you should and shouldn't do. And it's very simple. It's look at who is telling you something. Ask yourself, is their life something I want to mimic, or is this somebody I respect? If the answer is no, take that with a grain of salt and say, oh, you're trying to make me a soy boy right now. That's a hugely unnuanced point that I was almost afraid to say. So there's obviously nuances to that, but I think because there's so much resistance with guys being allowed to be masculine or socially accepted to be masculine in the West, I would say, right? Because like a lot of these girls I date are Middle Eastern and they fucking love when daddy takes control, baby. So it's like, it just depends, right? Because like I had this girl the other day and like, Tate, we'll say, oh, Tate, like I was with my two Middle Eastern mommies that were doing a photo shoot this weekend, and one of them just adored Tate. She was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Bro, you love him," and she's like, "I do. He's amazing." So like, in the West, it's kind of messed up, but like there are some still strong masculine traditions out there and girls that like strong men. But I would say the point of me doing that is like, now to be a masculine man, there's so much pressure on you all the time that it's like a point where it's like you either double down and become super masculine, or you basically stay a soy boy. And like
that's where the hyper masculinity is.
Exactly. And the masculinity, the super masculinity, quote unquote, doesn't have to be outward. So let that be known as well. Where like that doesn't mean you're like beating women, you're doing anything. It's like you just stand for something and you know what you stand for. So, for example, there's people that I idolize, or like I would say you honestly walk the line like better than anyone, and like literally, like it's like I've seen you operate from afar, and it's like Sam is super likable and he's a very kind person, but it's like if he won't like it, he'll just say fuck off and he won't do it. And so like I kind of have that same vibe, and that's kind of where I think people need to end up. Because it's very like, if you're a soy boy, you want to rebound all the way to like a Tate or something.
Yeah.
And then Tate gets a bad rep too, because he's just a nice, likable fucking dude too. So like he obviously got hit by the Matrix. But the point of all that was you have to understand people are going to tell you not to be a certain way. And then you have to choose to act like a man, knowing that you're going to get some resistance. And then once you are set in your convictions that you're going to be a man, it just gets worse with social media, because you put out content, I put on content. And if we say anything like kind of forward, we just get castrated, bro. Like, dude, I can't tell you how many times people are like, oh, and for me, I'm fairly self-aware, I'd like to think, so I get it. But they'll be like, oh, you come off as a fucking asshole, but then I meet you and you're pretty nice. And I'm like, okay, in my opinion, that's a compliment. I'm like, thank you, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So I think just guys becoming aware that there are people that don't want you to be strong with mainstream narrative and media is going to clearly bias everything that is against you as a person. Yeah. So if you're it's like the gaslighting thing. If you have a narcissistic parent, right? It's like your narcissistic parent is like, hey, you're a fuck up. You're this, you're that, you're this. And you're like, am I really, dad? And then there's that voice inside of you that's like, well, no, I think I'm pretty cool. But then like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And you're just like, God damn it. And then, Tate comes out of the blue and he's like, you're not a fuck up. Your dad was wrong. And then you're like, holy shit, you validated this feeling I've had for so long. So in that same way, that's basically like, just know that they're going to fucking come after you. So I used obviously Tate as a metaphor. But yeah, I mean, if people don't understand, like there's a full out blitz against you to be a dude, like I don't know what to say at this point, because it's so fucking obvious. Yeah, like everything they want is your submission.
I'm gonna put a screenshot up right now, because I think I tweeted something the other day where it went viral, because I know Alex said like he posted a video about it where it was like you typed in men on TikTok and then it was just like men are trash, men are never victims. This I was just like, holy shit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, it was full on. I'll send it to you. It's fucking wild. I was like, holy shit. I think you might have seen it, but yeah, it's definitely I like when you were talking about the polarization. You need to almost be polarizing into this sense. And it's been, which was going back to the other point, which is guys are so risk adverse now. Risk adverse, where that was one of our clear traits of being a man, is that we were able to withstand risk and take risk. Where we're not risk adverse, where we like to challenge that. So why do you think that's changed? Where we're now we're almost worse. Like men are so risk adverse to doing anything. Just being on calls and understanding that just even a simple decision has to be weeks and weeks and weeks thought about, instead of like split second decisions. Where did you see that? Because you're someone that definitely is not like that. I feel as if you're very quick with your decisions once you made a decision, and you take healthy risk. So where did that come from with you?
Yeah, I think healthy risk is a huge, like that healthy risk, I would say, is like what we as men want to do, right? Yep. So I think it's two things that guys do incorrectly. It's number one, just risk analysis. Like the things they think are risky literally are not fucking risky at all. Oh, let me go say hi to a girl in a mall. What if she says no? That's pretty. It's like, what the fuck are you talking? Like, how is that risky? You're going to say hi to a girl in a mall and you're scared she's going to say no? Like that whole meter is just absolutely messed up. Or like, oh, I'm in a job right now. Let me start a business. And it's like, dude, if you don't quit your job, there's zero risk here. The risk is somebody to say no to your product. Like people don't, their risk analysis just doesn't make sense. And then so like, the average guy cannot weigh out what is risky and what is worth taking a risk for. And I had this thought 2 days ago because I was in an Uber and the guy's driving the car and there's traffic for another 30 miles and he's just weaving in and out of traffic, but it's in Spanish. So I can't say anything in Spanish because I don't know enough to talk yet. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, dude, the average person has zero understanding of risk analysis because sure, if you weave through this traffic, you might save 2 minutes of time, but is that 2 minutes worth your life? Like for me, that's a no. So in that situation, I'm just going to sit in traffic because I can't do anything and then listen to music or do something else. Right. Yeah. So it's like, guys need to understand what actually, so like you swerving through traffic and cutting people off and like that's your life. Like that is actually risky. So it's like, don't fucking do that. But then like going to say hi to a girl at a gym or something and you're scared people might think you're weird. That is not risky. Like your family's still alive. You're still breathing. So I think dudes have a horrible calculation of not only what is worth risking for, but also what is actually risky. Like,
yes.
So then everything I do, and this is probably what you do too, it's like, sure, we take risks, but it's all very calculated and we know what we're doing. So for example, I was in my sales job. I'm top sales rep. I'm killing it. I'm doing this and that, but I wanted to turn my yearly income into my monthly. So I'm like, and this is part of masculinity. Everyone's like, you made it. You made it. You made it. You made it. This is perfect. You're 23 years old, making all this money because you're here doing this thing. And it's like, my soul was like, I know I can do more. So it's like, at some point I had to make that decision. It was like, fuck everybody else. I'm just going to do what I want to do. So I quit. And then the way I quit was a math equation where I was like, okay, if I drop my expenses to $1,000 a month and I have, $60,000 in the bank or whatever the number is, well, I could literally live for 60 months on $1,000 a month, assuming, not too many other expenses. That calculator was like, okay, I got 60 months of living expenses. Let's say it's $1,000 a month. I got 60 months. And then it was like, do I think I can figure something out in 60 months? I was like, yes, I do. And then my fallback to that was, well, worst case, I can get another 6-figure sales job because I know how to sell. So for me, it wasn't risky at all. For me, what was actually risky is like, let me live in this box with golden handcuffs until I die. Because I see everybody around me that's been here for 20 years, like doesn't hate their life, but all had these dreams that they never had manifest. And I just didn't want to do that because our stories weren't the same. My stories were like, I want to overcome and do this and that. Their stories were like, well, 7 years ago in basketball, and I'm just like, bro, like, I don't want to be that guy. Yeah. So for me, the quote unquote risky thing was actually the least risky thing because I did the fucking calculation. So I think guys need to really get there. So the foundation is perspective, I would say. Yep. Guys need to get the perspective on point. And once you can fix your perspectives, risk analysis really fixes itself. Because I don't think anybody is actually crazy, like wants risk in their life, but some people need a little more smoke than others, which I know that about myself. Like I need a little chaos to have some fun. But dudes are scared to say hi to a girl at their high school, or dudes are scared to, start a business while they have an income already, or dudes are afraid to it just doesn't make sense, bro. It's not risky at all. So like 90% of the stuff that we do really has no risk at all to it other than ego hits. And I think people conflate a hurt ego with a risk. That's not a risk. That's just an emotional sad state. So if you take hurt ego out of the equation, really nothing is that risky for most of the time, or for most things. So they just don't want to get like, people look at me weird.
That's huge. That's fucking, that's massive. If people got that, that's huge. I remember, I think might have been J.K. Molina was talking about it once. He said like the downside of approaching a girl is you get rejected. The upside is you find your wife, you have kids, you live a happy life with the whole family and that you've fucking created, and your lineage goes on. It's like, well, there's a lot more upside than downside. So so not to interrupt you, but like that is so, what you just did there, or what JK did or whoever, is so fucking important. I can't understate it. That is everything. Like you being able to reframe a situation with crazy pros versus not that many downsides is the skill. That is the skill that will let you do everything. Because I do that shit all the time. If I want something, the amount of arguments I'll stack up for it, I call it like perspective stacking, argument stacking. We'll go crazy. And then the negatives, I'll have like none. So like, I'll do that same shit too. It's like, oh, I'm going to say hi to a girl in a mall. Okay, downside, I feel weird for 3 seconds because I had a pretty good conversation, but then she told me she had a boyfriend. It's like, that's a fucking downside. Or it's like upside, lineage, girlfriend. I get to flex on my friends' faces. I got a dime rolling next to me, like whatever it is. It's just, people need to fucking reframe it a little bit better, in my opinion. Yeah, it's all this. It's the mind. That's really it. That's life, isn't it? Just being able to hack
Everything.
this thing correctly.
Mind
You're
hacks.
able to make one of the things that I admire about you a lot is that you're able to make not only like quick decisions, but you fully commit to everything
Yep.
you do. So where does the full commitment? I have this video where this guy dances with two TikTok girls, but he outshines the girls because he's so committed, and they're
Yep.
laughing a little bit, but he doesn't give a fuck. And that's what I see with you is just like everything you're doing, whether it's coming onto Twitter, fully commit. Whether it was the finance that the what you're doing right now, fully
Yep.
commit. Whether it was any sort of YouTube, fully commit. So where does that come? Is that an internal thing that you do, or is that, as you said, you stack it up so high that you go balls to the walls and fucking just commit everything to it?
Yeah, that I think is from experience. And what I mean by that
Yeah.
is like you have to try enough shit out that you want to do, that you've done it all and there's nowhere else for your mind to go. And then once your mind can't go anywhere else and you've scratched literally every itch, then it
Yeah.
becomes super clear. And I think I made a talk about this, which is like the talk was like there's two levels of clarity, which is the first one is like when you're 20 to 22 or 23 and you haven't done anything, or
Mhm.
it's like you might be 35 or 40 and you just haven't pulled the trigger yet, right? So it's like if you haven't quested out as a man, you got to just try shit. So
Yeah.
then it's like, and I tried everything. So then it was like I did a marketing agency and a fucking SEO agency, and I did sales, and I did trading, and I did this and I did that. I did ecom. I did fucking literally everything I ever wanted to try. I literally tried. And
Yeah.
then so once you try it all and you actually know what it looks like, then you're like, oh, okay, this happened. And then like with the financial thing, so I was working my sales job.
Uh,
I see this dude with a crazy fucking yacht, and I'm like, what the hell? And then I get introduced by my old boss, which is another point, which is like people poo-poo shit. That is their life. So like, for example, like I had all these coworkers and I'm like, dude, you haven't sold in 3 months. Like, what the fuck are you doing? They're like, oh, it's just a sales job. It doesn't fucking matter. I'm like, you come here every day. This is your life. Why are you not trying to get better at sales? You're here now.
yeah.
Like, how do you show up every day and not want to be how
The
do you not
best.
want to try to at least get better at sales, like at a sales job? Like, so they were there for 3 years with me and they never improved. I came from nothing, right? I worked on my skills and I left the best rep. And so like my boss is the one who introed me to the super rich guy, and only because I was smashing everybody because I worked hard. So it's like all those people technically could have had the same opportunity, but because I treated I call it a life career. So like everything you do, if you put your all into it, it's going to fucking somehow serve you in the future. Right.
Yep. Yep.
Which is crazy. And so that mindset paired with just trying a bunch of shit, it allows me to commit at levels that I used to not be able to commit to because I've done other stuff. So it's like with the financial thing, it's like, oh, well, I've done this and this and this, but I want to make this amount of money. Okay, this is really the only opportunity I see for that. And this is what I tell myself that I want. Okay, fuck it, burn that, bro. Quit the job and just go full speed, right?
Full speed.
So you have to scratch all the itches, because if you don't, then the loop's going to be open in your mind and you're going to be like, well, what if I do this and that? And it's like,
Yep.
and people stay there forever. So the biggest problem is staying there. It's like scratch the fucking itch quickly. So it's like, well, I might want to do this and this. Okay, do it, but in the next 3 weeks, so you know, actually. And then once you actually know, you're going to revert back to some opportunity that you had tried before that you didn't finish. And then you're like, okay, out of everything I've just tried, this is what I actually know I want to do. And then you just shoot
Go
from that
for
point.
it.
But that's
Yeah.
with,
Go
go
on.
ahead.
It sounds like you take a professional approach to skill acquisition almost.
Literally, yeah. And then from the decision thing, it's the same with the girl stuff too. It's like I just was doing these sales calls and I learned, oh, some people are going to hate me, some people are going to like me. So then I saw that actually like you'll probably have clients that you teach them things, and I have clients like this, I'll teach them stuff and then it doesn't really hit, right? So a real one that happened the other day is pre-selection, right? So guys know like, oh, if you have a hot girl with you, other girls are going to like you. Everyone knows that. But then this one dude was working his way up. He actually got a super hot girl, and then he actually brought her to a real party that they threw, and then he like parried her around, right? So he took his girl over, she's kind of following him, and he saw the flips in the faces. He was like,
oh wow.
And all these girls that kind of swerved him like just turned, and he was like, holy shit, now I get it. And so if you can have the holy shit, now I get it in like every area of your life, then you get super certain, because now he's going to be like, oh, let me bring a girl, it's going to work. So you're operating from like real shit instead of just weird theory that you've read off, how to insert your pp.com or whatever the fuck it is, right? So I don't know what it is.
I fucking love that. Yeah, the reference experiences were huge. I remember we were big in RSD about like writing them down, right? Because you learned them
Yeah,
so many more times, and even like reading back on those ones, I'm like, holy shit! I remember that mic drop moment. I remember it, and I
yeah,
wrote it down. Years later, you talked about something that helped me actually recently was that you talked about you go back to a baseline level and how to
yep.
increase your baseline level. And for anyone, I'm gonna butcher this, but it was like as if if your baseline level was you had $500 in the bank, when it would hit 100, you'd freak out, right, and get it back up to. But when you had 1,000, you wouldn't freak out and you'd let it drain back to 500 because that's where you're comfortable with. So I'd love for you to go a little bit more in depth in that for me personally, because I was like,
Yeah.
wow, that's it's almost like you have it's a default. It's like a that's where you're comfortable, and how to increase that comfortable. So if it's like one girl a week or one girl a month you feel comfortable with, or it's like one certain amount of money, certain amount of status or anything like that, how did you were able to level those up so when you were at the 500 you were like, holy fuck, I'm not at the 1,000, and just keep leveling it up and up and up. And if you
Yeah.
want to go into more detail, explain that a little bit clearly because I might have butchered that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I thought I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So three concepts basically came to my head with that have helped me. So the first one is like the core one, which is we are our standards. It's that simple, right? That paired with the idea that in my head, a goal isn't a target that you hit. A goal is a spectrum. A goal is basically like people think it's a target, like you hit it. But in my head, it's like a river that's continuously flowing, and a goal is just an arbitrary line that you've chosen on that river. So then you get to that goal and you realize, oh, there's still both directions here. So it's like a spectrum that continues forever. I think reframing goals like that has helped me too. And then the third one that I just had that I low-key forgot was, I remember now, is that when you choose like a goal or a higher standard, you might think you want it, but you might not actually want it. And so you have to view your own behaviors to gauge if you actually want it, because the reason you don't have the goal or the new standard that you want is because you haven't done it yet. So when you actually do it, you're going to get all this new information, and that new information will then either be like, it will affirm it like, oh, I do actually want this thing, or it's going to take you away and maybe your goal is something else. So what I mean by that is like, so the idea is basically your standards, right? So, and everyone's felt this. And I noticed this because I had like, everything was happening at the same time. So like, for example, the money thing. So I was used to $500 in my bank account, right? So like, if someone asked me how much money is in your bank account, I didn't really have to think that hard because I was like probably around $500. That's just what was normal. Now our behaviors are, so we have an anchor, which is our standard, which was at $500, and then we have a peak and a valley. And the only time that humans do anything is when we approach a peak or we go close to a valley. So we need our own mental meters to be like firing off for us to do anything. So for $500, I would just sit there. If I had 500, I wouldn't do anything, right? Christmas comes, grandma gives me a G. Now I got $1,500 in there, right? So the 1,500, I have no goal of making more money. It wasn't a thing that I valued. So I'm like, oh, I got $1,500. Subconsciously, I get more frivolous. So now it's like, oh, because I'm over my peak already. My peak was like maybe $1,000 because I never would have $1,000 in there. Now I've jumped way over it. So I'm like, oh my God, I have so much money. And I had no goal to protect against that. So it was like, let me buy these shoes here, or this shirt here, or let me take my friend, let me buy him a ticket to fucking come see me or whatever. Like, you find the most creative ways to spend your money back down to that baseline of $500. And people do that forever unconsciously because they don't understand where their peak is. Now the valley is the opposite. So the valley is like, I have my $500, right? I tear my shoes running, or I crash my car, and now I got to shuffle off $300 to get my car fixed. Well, now I have $200 in there, and that's lower than my normal. And I'm like, fuck, I only have $200. Then I tighten up. So everyone has felt themselves tighten up. It's like, okay, I'm going to spend less. I'm getting serious. I'm going to spend less. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Whoop, right back to 500. So that concept is so profound. I'm getting literally goosebumps because if people understand that, they can literally change everything. So basically that was happening with my money. And I was like, oh shit, if I get more, so like paychecks too. And my sales job, I was used to making, a certain amount of money a year. Then you start getting all these commissions and you just make more money than you've ever made. And you just fucking get the craziest ways to spend it. I'm doing, trips to Vegas, and I'm gambling 20 G's on blackjack. And it's like, what the fuck am I? And I have no money after it. And I'm like, oh, I literally just got super creative on how to spend this. So that was happening, while also other shit, like I use the room example. So like we're used to our houses being a certain level of clean. And then like that's just usually what it is. So I have a couple shirts on the ground, a pair of pants on the ground. It's just, that's what it is. Now, over time, I'm going to put a shirt here, a thing here, a thing here, another piece of shoe, another pair of shoes here. And then my room's going to be super fucking dirty. So that is what is going to be a valley, right? So it's like, I cannot handle how dirty this is. The disgust is going to shove that in my face, and I'm going to clean it back to super clean. Right. So we're like, so the motivating thing there was your room's fucking dirty. So you clean it back to clean. And then once it's super clean, that's above your normal. So you're like, oh my God, it's so clean here. Then you get frivolous again. So you're like, oh, fuck, I could leave an eggshell here because I'll throw that away later. Oh, it's just one dish in the sink. I'll fucking do it. I got one dish in the sink now. It's like, I got one dish here, blah, 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 blah. So these things trap us. That made sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then the combat to that is being aware of where your levels are, and it has to be anchored with a new something. So like for money, like a specific number or something. And then once you have the specific number there, you have to look at the systems that are in place in your own life and then change the system in your environment to suit that new thing, basically. So like for the money thing, it was like, if I have $1,500 here, I'm going to fucking spend it. And then the first part is being aware where my peak was. So I was like, oh, every time I'm at like 1,500, I get the urge to take the foot off the gas. So it's like, just in every area of your life, where do you take your foot off the gas? And like, what are you looking at when you do it? So for me, like for a business, for a lot of people, it's a monetary thing per month. So they look at not the system itself, but they look at the results. So it's like, oh, I made $20,000 this month. Let me go foot off the gas. Or maybe your goal is 10K a month. It's like, oh, I made 10 this month, foot off the gas. When if you looked at the system, it was like, oh, I was doing 20 leads. I was calling 20 leads, and this month I've only called 10. So then the game will switch like that in that way. But it's just creating systems then. So it's like, okay, I made, I have my $1,500. Let me shove 1,000 of it into a bank account that I don't have a card for. So it just disappears when it goes there. And now I technically still have my normal, but I have the thing over there. And then there's what I call the fuck your life up period. So this is super important to understand, is that so if we hit a valley, we clean super hard and make it clean. When you hit a peak, you'll have a fuck my life up like wave. So it's like for a week or so, you're going to want to spend the money, or like you hit a new low on your weight. And then for a week, you're going to reward yourself, and it's going to fucking derail all your progress. So it's literally just wait. It's like, let me just not have access to whatever the hell I'm going to do right now and just wait it out for a week. And if you can literally just wait a week, your standard will usually raise, which is fucking crazy.
Wow.
So it's like, so it's not how can I do it? It's how can I not fuck up this new high for like a week or two? And if you can not fuck it up for a week or two, usually it will set in there and you're like, okay, this is my new normal. So like every jump that I've had with money, I get a new amount in my bank account and I feel that fucking urge to get the car, to do whatever. And I'm like, don't fuck it up for 2 weeks. So I just let it sit there for 2 weeks. 2 weeks go by, I have the money in my account, and all those purchasing emotions went through me. And it's like, I don't really need the thing anymore because I said I will have this goal, and then I can get back in the action. And then if I ever drop below that new amount, I get like super anxious, right? Like you've had that, like your old monthly goal becomes your daily, and then like all your shit gets fucked up, and it's just from not fucking things up. So I think just being aware of everything and realizing it's always a spectrum, so you can always go up or down. And then the big thing for me was just not fucking it up for like 2 weeks. That was the biggest thing. So it's like, you get that $1,500 in the account, don't spend it for 2 weeks. And then after the 2 weeks, then consider it. And because people ruin it in these little weak like blotches, I would say, which is crazy.
There is so many angles at life that can be taken towards. That's profound, like very profound. Because that is life. Yeah.
It's literally everything. And then the only thing I forgot to mention was like these run in unison. So like when I had the $500 on my bank account and that went to 300 was usually when my room was the messiest, was usually when, I was slacking on emails for clients, like everything, chaos ensues or order ensues together. And it just is reflected in all things. So it's like your mind is your mind and it's going to get reflected to all things. So then it was like when my bank account was the highest, was also when my room happened to be the cleanest, was also when I was on my diet. And I was like, holy fuck, there's some weird mechanism here that is just rising and lowering like through everything. And I'm like a conduit of this thing. And then that freaked me out.
Wow. Holy shit. Yeah. That's like obviously why Peterson's first rule is, his third rule is like clean your room.
Clean your fucking room, bro.
Yeah. Stand tall, clean your room. So I like the only 2 rules I remember out of that book.
That's all you need. Yeah.
Lobster, stand tall, clean the room. Wow. Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. And especially I feel like a lot of people can understand that principle there because it's like they've felt that, that nearly everybody's felt that. tightening of themselves or splurging and spending. I know I've done it even recently,
It
even
never
after
goes
watching that.
away. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
that period of 2 weeks, that's really good, because a lot of the time you don't need the shit, or you like it's just like an emotion that just comes through you half time,
Yep.
and then you're
Yeah.
like, oh,
You
buy it
just
or not
have
buy
this little like manic high of like, oh my God, this and this and this and everything lines up. And you're like, yeah. And then you do it and the emotion goes away. And now you're left with the thing and no money. And you're like, oh, fuck. And then, so you're like, oh, God damn it. So then now I'm aware of that where I'm like, okay, I
Yeah.
literally am in a manic purchasing state, which being aware of that has helped me sold because I can see when people are in that on sales calls. But I'm like, okay, don't do this because it's like a random dream. You're like, oh, I made $50,000. Oh my God, I'm gonna go get that freaking C8 that almost looks like a Ferrari. It's like, no, stop, don't do it. Just wait 2 weeks, and then you come back to reality.
You're like, I'm gonna flex on Twitter. Fuck, it's gonna be
I'm gonna
great. It's gonna be
flex so hard on Twitter. Yeah.
there's so many fucking likes. Yeah, like oh, too funny. I'd love to go into the voice notes and how that came about because that was pretty legendary. If anyone knows, Grant popped onto the scene and had these voice notes on Twitter that he would post of girls, and he'd interact with them, and it would be cold interactions, cold people. And he would say some of the most outlandish, funny things that have me rolling and dying. And we used to play it on the fucking the big theater here. I would connect my phone to there through the loudspeakers and just listen to your voice and be like, holy shit. Because there was a lot of nuances in there. Because obviously I came from the social dynamics. So I'm listening to you. And people obviously thought it was hilarious and you're funny. But I was seeing like every tonality shift, every break in rapport, every spike in emotion. So I'm trying to judge them, and it took me a little while to like really get them down pat. And I've done them, and obviously they work fantastic. But to see where, so I'd love to get your perspective on them, and then if you could go really deep into why, not only why they work, but why your way of communication works really well with that 33% of girls.
Yeah. So the voice memos were hilarious. So there was basically 2 reasons they came about. Well, I'd say 3. The first one is I just would do them. So like texting, voice message. So I was like, okay, what are my natural things over other dudes? And one of them was like, well, I've done 50,000 sales calls talking. So then I was like, let me use this to my advantage. So I just started shooting voice messages. So I did those all the time. And I was like, wait, I could just record these and throw these on the internet and people like, and so I threw them out there. And then like, content creation is interesting because like people will tell you to do a certain thing on a platform and then you can almost do the opposite. So like on TikTok, it was like, hey, make these little 7-second videos, right? And then I literally only make like 2-3 minute fucking like nuanced bangers. And then that ran up. So it's like, well, I'd never done a 7-second video in my life. So Twitter was the same way. Where like I saw these guys teaching how to grow, but there's always undiscovered lanes that you can find based on your likes or your personality. So I found that with TikTok. I'm trying to find it with Twitter. So I found the voice notes. So that ripped up like a ton of views. And I was like, got it, here it is. So then so I just kept ripping them. Like once you find what works, like, keep doing it. And they just kept blowing up. And I was like, oh my goodness. So then it became, number 1, this is great engagement and people are following me and it's like working. And then number 2, and I'm glad you caught it. Like it was almost a fuck you to the red pill guys. Cause it's like, you can't even tell what's happening here, but I'm like everything that they're like, oh, well, you're being beta or you're gay or you da. Every voice note was like that. So I'm like, watch this work in your face. And so I just kept going because I hate that shit. So like, I hate the unnuanced, like be an alpha male and you're going to get girls. So then I'm coming in with like, oh my God, baby, you're so hot. I'm going to like sniff your neck and fucking do it. And like, it's working and their minds were just, so part of it was growth. And then part of it was just a sauce on their face, really. So yeah.
I fucking loved it, especially because the nuance. Because I teach now seven pillars, and one of them is naturalness, and naturalness goes really deep. And one of the things was even the way that you are high in naturalness. It's just it's like peanut butter on the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's perfect. It needs to be there almost. And it's like great. Your communication style, obviously, it's come through the sales calls and doing a lot of cold approach. I don't want to underestimate that. I'm sure you've done a lot of that sort of stuff. Why do you think it works so well? Where you're a mixture, you've got that perfect mixture of banter and flirting, the perfect mixture of sarcasm and just this level of, I would say that there's a little bit of there's a lot of break in rapport there. There's you're gaining a lot of rapport, but you're breaking a lot of it, which is something that I know a lot of naturals do very well. which is you can't just be placating the whole time. Just can't be
Yep.
like submissive. And so where do you think that your strongest suit is, and what do you think guys should specifically work on more of that similar to your communication style? Or what?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is you need the right so in my head, communication, guys look at it with the words. And I think that's the wrong way to look at it, because the words are like a manifestation of, or like they're a symptom of the perspectives and the paradigms that you're coming from. Right. So it's like, if you're going to build a house, guys have a crappy foundation and they're worrying about like the color of the windows. And it's like, bro, like it doesn't matter what color your fucking window is, because the moment this thing gets fucking in it, like it's going to explode when it rains. So I always operate on the level of like paradigms and like principles, I would say. So, and if guys can do that, it'll help a lot. So like what the voice message is, it's basically the rule of 33%, right? So it's polarize early. So that's one thing I'm operating on, is like, I'm going to say something that, and people are like, well, how do I polarize? You just do it being yourself. That's what people don't understand. Like you being you, like being the best version of Sam is some people are going to like you. Some people aren't going to like you. Right. So then it's like, guys want to act fake and polarize with a fake version of themselves, but that fake version is still subject to the law of 33%. So it's like, well, now you're acting fake, but then the people that do like you don't even like the real you. So like, if you're going to lose anyway, why not just fucking be yourself in the beginning? That makes no sense to me. So like, that was part of it. We're like, I'm just going to be me. Like I have kind of weird humor. And so like, okay, number one is polarize this girl to see if she likes me. And then number two is make her feel amazing. So like, I'm never in my own head. I'm trying to make other people feel good. So I'm like, how can I send her a voice message that even if she didn't think I was hot, she's like, that was kind of entertaining. And that was that. And I feel good about myself. And so that's where I always come from. It's never about me. It's about the other person. I'm like, how can I make you feel good? How can I, even if I send on your face so blatantly that you're like, this guy clearly wants my soul, but he's not really my type, but that was still kind of a good effort. Like, it's always just good emotions. And so that's the thing that the dudes don't understand, is I can say shit like, oh my God, you're so pretty. You're literally a male model. I need to hold your hand and call you all night long. Like stuff like that is like the frame of me just saying what I want to do is masculine enough that the words don't matter because my foundation is correct. Which is hard to articulate, but it's like, just literally, you just need a couple principles that you value as a man. So mine in this setting would be polarized by being myself and just make her feel good. And those are consistent in every voice message. And then the other stuff is just practice. Like I've made jokes that have hit, I've made jokes that haven't hit. You just develop your own style that you can do on autopilot. So I've done a ton of reps. So like, it's basically at first, you just need a couple principles that you want. So it could be mine. It could be polarized by being myself, which means I'm never going to do anything that isn't me, whether I think this is going to help or not. But then you need, right. And then it goes back to the abundance mindset, obviously, which is like, well, you have to be okay with somebody being like, hey, I don't like you. And you have to be like, well, fuck it. So that's in there as well. And then see, it's so layered, it's hard to even articulate, but then it's like, okay, based on these principles, let me fire off a message here that reflects that. And then it either hits or it doesn't. But then I was clearly also trying to make content. So I would say shit that I knew was going to get a reaction.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I would say crazy things and they would just laugh at it because I'd tell some girl like some whatever story. But
Some
really it's just making them feel good. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
principle.
It was fantastic to see it, especially because it's like it was the first angle that I saw. I hadn't even thought of it. Like obviously, sense of voicemails, but fuck me, it was a great way, from someone general admiration going, fuck, that was very smart. I told all my boys, I'm like, yo, you gotta do this. But no, I feel as if, you're if someone doesn't think you're authentic, I don't know if they know what authentic is, because you're the most authentic motherfucker I've seen in a long time, especially for to how do I say it? Like when you say you are yourself, some guys are like, oh, I'll be myself, but it's like Grant has probably changed from that himself back when he was a kid to Grant sales to Grant now. So that's what I want to get everyone. It's like you are yourself, but you're evolving self. It's like your best self, your most authentic self, and that's what the thing. So last couple of questions in your authenticness, is it that because the rule of 33 that you're able to express yourself so freely because you know that there's going to be 33%? Is it that freeingness of knowing that 1 in 3 might hate you and that frees you? Because I would feel that, say, if you said to someone 1 in 3 might hate you, that would shut them down. a
Yep.
lot. Like, oh God, like then they're looking at the 1 in 3 instead of the 2 out of 3 that would somewhat like you. So is it that you're reframing every single thing in your mind to be able to more look in that sort of direction where it is more the glass half full rather than half empty and reframe? Or is it that you've laid core foundations where everything's layered, like abundance is layered, understanding the rule of 33, understanding that you got to shoot shots because you got to get rejected? Is it that you've layered so many things, or that are you just constantly reframing your mind?
I would say it's like a little bit of both.
Mhm.
So like my process was like, I wanted a goal. Let's say it was to date a hot girl.
Yeah.
And then I knew I wasn't there yet. So then I had to figure out where I was messing up. And then once I knew where I was messing up, I had to get a fix for that specific thing. So
Mhm.
it's like, oh, I can get a girl to laugh in person when I talk to her. But then when I get her number, I get flaked on the date. I don't know why this is happening. So then it's like, okay, hyperfixate on that one little thing. So
Yeah.
it's like, why are you failing here? And then you'll learn a bunch of stuff and you try a bunch of stuff to figure it out. So it's like literally just scientific method. But then, yeah, I mean, from the meta point, it's like the law of 33% helped me so much
Mhm.
because I came to that at first with people in my childhood that I realized I could never win against. And then I
Yeah.
carried that, and then it got doubled. It basically got reaffirmed on the sales calls. And that should be the most freeing thing ever. Cause it's like, yo, I'm just going to be myself. And if you don't like me, thank you, because you've told me that we're not a good fit. So guys don't like walk through it, which is like, do you really want a relationship with someone who doesn't like you? Like, have you ever lived in and maybe they just are too pampered. It's like, you've never
Yeah.
had a living hell where somebody literally hates you and you're stuck to their hip all the time. And you
Yeah.
haven't taken the abuse of them just constantly trying to gaslight you for shit. And then you really like have experienced what that is like. But if you've lived that, then you're like, that fucking sucks. So the pain of that experience that you've already lived or could probably in your mind imagine is going to be way less than like you getting the blessing of somebody being like, I don't like you for like the pain of ambiguity, I would say is what it is. People hate not knowing the reason why a girl didn't like them or a person didn't like them.
Yeah.
If you can be okay with the ambiguity, and that was a huge one for me too. It's like, hey, bro, like I get, dude, every DM I have from a guy is like, hey, I was talking to this girl. She doesn't like me. What did I do wrong? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, you'll never fucking know the answer. Like the game is just ambiguity with clients or whatever. Like you can only self-analyze and be like, oh, did I fuck up? Or do I think I fucked up? Or can I see nothing to fix here? If the answer is I can't fix anything, you have to just be able to be okay with ambiguity, be like, okay, on to the next one and go. And the law of 32% did that for me. But then on top of that, it was layering everything, right? So I was like, you talk to a girl, she's the hottest girl you've ever got, and you see yourself acting like a bitch, and you're like, oh God, I'm afraid to lose her. And then the fact that you're afraid to lose her pushes her away.
Yeah.
And you're like, if I just didn't act like a pussy, maybe I would have dated her. So then the next one comes around, and then you're like, oh, let me not act like a pussy here.
Yeah.
But then you've got two now, and you're like, oh, well, I got two. Maybe I can get a third. And then you get a third. So like genuine abundance, progression. So I mean, it's just layers. But yeah, I mean, the law of 32% I apply like literally daily though.
Fantastic. I think we're getting matrixed.
I can hear you, but it's
okay.
frozen.
Perfect. Yeah. Now we're back. That's very like we're getting matrixed again. Dropping too much fire. That's why, as usual. This is crazy. No, this is fantastic. This is so practical for them to use that there are, a lot of these guys are just going to be like, wow, they're actually going to see results just by what you're saying, which is fantastic. And that's what we're all here to do. Really, at the end of the day, that's all I'm here to do. I'm like, man, I was in your position and I had a company. Now there's no company. I need to fucking put this shit out. Just be able to help them. Great. Last question. If you could change one thing about the world, what would that one thing be?
That's a crazy question, actually. If I could change one thing about the world, what would it be? The thing I would change is I would change the entire world paradigm so every human understood that the path to a better life is a personal responsibility thing, and that everything that they want comes from them and not the outside world. And I think if every single human operated from it's my responsibility to make my life better and the people around me is better, that would change everything. So I think that's what I would change, is I'd instill every person with the belief that, hey, you have the power to change your life if you do things the right way. It's not going to be easy, but you could theoretically do it. And if everyone stopped blaming everything and like looking at the government to save them and blaming this person for that thing, I think that would change everything in like fucking a week. So that's probably what I would change.
That's pretty wild. That's a good one. I like that one. That's a good one. I've told a lot of people that, but that one's pretty fucking special. Yeah. Love that. What are you working on right now that people can go and find out and go learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah. So YouTube, Mindhackz, TikTok, Mindhackz. I'm just putting out content. That's basically it. So not all the other stuff is like random business stuff that's in the weeds, but yeah, just content's on there, putting stuff out. And then Instagram, Grant Lannin. Shoot me a DM. I'm there. So yeah, just putting out stuff.
Fantastic. This has been close to my heart. This is a great episode. Thank you, my friend, for coming on. I appreciate all your time and your knowledge you dropped on this podcast. I love it.
Thank you, Sam. You're a fucking legend, bro. Love you.